Peace, light, love, blessings, and blessings to you. Meet Sankofa here. Doing a review of a session that I did about transmuting the energy of fear. So, if you were in that session, this is your review of that. Um, First, understanding what fear is and the importance of it at this time in human history, while we are riding the wave of a global pandemic. Fear is defined as an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause harm, or is a threat. So we're definitely dealing with that energy, whether it's thinking about other people, thinking about dis-ease, thinking about um, our responses to those things. So the first thing is to let's think about the lesson of the rabbit in the indigenous framework. The rabbit is the animal that is representative of fear, right? So you ever seen a rabbit? If you like step on a stick, it's like, I'm out. So in that framework, the rabbit represents that because it had a relationship with a magical being, that it became fearful of that relationship, even though the witch, as it's called in this particular teaching, was its friend and helped them, it gave them medicine and helped them through life's trials. But because it was fearful of that which it did not have itself and did not understand, it ran and hid from the magical being. And when the magical being um, was upset about it and eventually um, crossed paths with the rabbit again, asked, you know, why have you been avoiding me, my friend? And the rabbit said, basically, get away from me, because you know how many people do, how we do when we come across something we don't yet understand. And the part that I didn't tell in the session was, because of that, the magical being said to the rabbit, I will give you that which you have asked for, which is that which you fear, you will call it. So if the rabbit fears the hawk will come in and get it. And that's the beauty of this lesson, is that if we don't get a handle on that which we fear and able to face it and able to transmute it, articulate it, and make rational decisions, there's an energy match that's always there for us. So that which you fear will come upon you. You will be fixating on it, and you will actually bring those experiences into your life. So this is not just, although there are many things about addressing fear that will help you in your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies and selves. It will reduce stress, make your immune system less susceptible to dis-ease if you're not in fear. But being able to face it means you're not making decisions to push it away, which are actually a lot of times brings you closer to that thing which you fear, because you're not making good and positive choices based on really rooted and grounded mental, physical, and spiritual intuition. So that's that. So how this process that I came up with, and there are many processes, and you can add to this as every teaching is. It's just a way to think about it and think through it, so you can figure out where in your body and in your mind and the way that you move in the world, where can you apply some of these or all of these to be in a better position to transmute the fear into something that you can work with and is powerful for you. So the first in this is you have to free up your courage. There's no way around that. You must have courage to stand and even look at fear, right? To even question the fear. So if you're looking at the news all day and you don't have the capacity to stand up to that fear and say, wait a minute, let me question this. What does this mean for me? Where do I operate in this? What makes sense for me? Then you might make choices that aren't necessarily good for you. So freeing up your courage, I like to use affirmations a lot. I have a book that I use, Florence Scovel Shinn. It's Your Word is Your Wand. Um, and The Game of Life and How to Play It. You can find these books everywhere because she's a very like early 1920s metaphysician. So they're public documents now where you can find lots of good affirmations. Some of them are very Christian leaning. So if that's not your thing, you can always transmute the words into whatever it is. I do that. I use spirit a lot because that's how I view that in my own world, but very powerful affirmations. So whatever feels good to you. One that I like to use just like as a baseline, all is well, all is always well. And if it's not well, it's becoming well. And that really helps with that fear of whatever I'm in and whatever phase of that transmutation I'm in. Another thing is working with your gallbladder meridian. So right here is where your gallbladder meridian starts. Please just look up gallbladder meridian because I'm not a licensed massage therapist. This is how I work with this energy based on teachings I was given. So, so you can be more direct, but it's here. It goes back through here. It goes from your tear line here, around your ear, and right back here. And it goes all the way down to your genitals, so it goes to your breast. The meridian goes through your genitals and back through like your sciatica point. So I will take off my shoes so I can show you where this is that I work with and why it's important for me to use my gallbladder meridian. So right back here, where you have your sciatica, so when it comes from your genitals comes down here and it goes straight down through here. It makes a little bit of pivot right in the middle of your calf. Here, a little bit of a pivot here, down to your ankle and down to that fourth toe. So that is your gallbladder meridian as I have known it. So I don't have a gallbladder. So it was first introduced to me to work with this meridian because the gallbladder inside of your body is where your courage is. It's the courage meridian. So when you're feeling in fear, to make sure that that courage is cleared up in your body. You can also do body drumming along those general lines. Sometimes we hold a lot of tension where these places are. So you just do some gentle things there. And also because your courage goes down through your genitals, if you have a partner or if you're partnered with yourself, you can definitely use self-massage, self-soothing affirmations to open up that energy in your sensuality and your sexual practices. So freeing up your courage, right? The second thing is honoring your wisdom sources. So a lot of times when we're in fear, it's because we don't feel like we're supported in the knowledge and the wisdom that we need to walk through whatever that situation is. So while I'm talking about these, I'm going to give you a space in each one of them to write down where you think one place of wisdom is there. And in your journaling time or your time where you're working with the energy of this, go back and flesh that out a little bit more. So there's 3 areas that we have access to wisdom. One is our ancestral wisdom. Some people do more traditional ways of honoring and connecting with their ancestors. So they might have an altar. I definitely have an ancestor altar. I speak with my ancestors, candles, water, feeding them, talking to them, communing with them. And there's many other ways that you could talk to your ancestors, like I consider nature, trees, my ancestors. So there's many things that you can do to connect with that energy. If that's not your thing, you can connect through your ancestral wisdom through the stories that have been passed down to you, through what you have viewed of people and what you have admired of your ancestors, that now you can take that and use that for courage. For example, my paternal grandmother, Lily Mae, hey, she went to night school when she was 50 in the 1960s. 50 years old, went to night school to become a nurse. That took a tremendous amount of courage to do that, to go to night school while she was cleaning houses in the daytime, had children, and really leaned on the community. That is an ancestral wisdom. So that's what I would write down for my ancestral wisdom. I know that within me, I'm a part of her, she is a part of me. I have the courage to start something new. It doesn't matter where in my life I am, and I hold that ancestral wisdom. So write down one place where, just quickly, that comes to mind about where you have some ancestral wisdom or where you can look for your ancestral wisdom. Okay, the second place is communal wisdom. So we all have networks of people that we are in community with. And sometimes it takes courage to get to this wisdom, right? So if you have friends that are um, great business leaders, great spiritual leaders, just great friends in general. They connect people. You have friends that always have a word of encouragement, or they know how to cook. They always have a beautiful relationship with their children. Whatever it is, we all have like this communal wisdom, right? We all have, somebody who make people in your friend group that people may not like, but they know how to set boundaries, right? If you need that, reach out. It can be just a gentle asking, and an opportunity for you to just really face it and say, hey, I'm having a little bit of challenge in this area. I've observed you're really good at this. Can I run a couple of things by you and pick your brain about it? So we have access to that communal wisdom. So, write down some of the places that you have some communal wisdom. This would be especially good if you're present to an area that you are currently working through fear. Where might be your communal wisdom? Just write down whatever your intuition is telling you. Okay. All right. The next way is embodied wisdom. So in the same way that I use the example of, like, my grandmother is here literally, right? Part of my blood and my DNA makeup is based on not only the people that came before me, but all the experiences I've ever had. They live within my embodiment, right? I maybe have released where my body is holding tension, but my body remembers things, right? So the reason I have the ability to walk now is because my body remembers when I walked through that lesson before, and it holds that wisdom. I don't have to get up every day and learn again how to walk. My body is holding that wisdom within me. So it is a beautiful practice to ask your body what lessons that it has for you when you are facing fear. What do I already know about this? Where is it that this wisdom is in my body, right? That I know of. And a lot of times when you ask your body directly, you just take a deep breath, ask your body directly, you might get sensations, and you might get images that pop up for you, situations, conversations, affirmations, where your body is really a place where you can inquire about that. One thing that helps me when I'm working with embodied wisdom is to actually move, free up those spaces so you can be in your body. Maybe do a movement first just to be in your body, and then maybe sit with the questions. See how all that works with you? And I'll take a pause here for your intuition to tell you where you might have embodied wisdom or something that felt resonant that you want to try about embodied wisdom. Okay, the next thing with the process of transmutation, so we just went through the process of freeing up your courage, which was number one. Number two was honoring your wisdom sources, which we just talked about those three. And the last one is like actualizing your wisdom. So when you've gathered, when you freed up your courage, when you have gathered from your wisdom sources, the transmutation process happens when you actually use that wisdom and use that courage to make a decision to take a route. And then through that, you're transmuting that fear into positive action that is for your highest and greatest good. So three things, tools and practices I use. The first is truth telling. Tell the truth about it. This is making me feel fearful, and fearful has a lot of ways in which it manifests. So you might not be like, you might not be like a traditional or what we think about when we're in fear. It might turn into something like anxiety, anger, jealousy, resentment, fault finding, depression, levels of despair. All of these are, the manifestations of fear. So, and as a general thing, like you can use any of this if you just feel out of alignment. You don't feel centered and rooted. Something's like something in your body, mind, spirit space is like feeling off and not aligned. You can use this same thing, this process of transmutation in really anything. We're just applying it to fear for this particular practice. So truth telling. And truth telling doesn't necessarily mean like you have to tell that person or that thing the truth about it. Like sometimes that's not safe, and we have to use our own wisdom to know who is ready and can, and who's worth receiving our truth. And some people are just not. Sometimes you might be called on to do that to facilitate a type of change. But I'm talking about the truth that comes from within you. To thine own self be true, right? That's my mom's favorite thing to say. To thine own self be true. And so even if you don't do anything about it, it is a beautiful practice to be in honest and truthful relationship with thine own self, right? This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This makes me upset. This makes me scared and fearful. From that place, then you can decide what action you would like to take. But if you're not coming from a place of truth, whatever action you take will also be misaligned, right? So it's kind of like if you're going through the whole process of this transmutation, tell yourself the truth. Tell yourself the truth. Let's take the breaths there, because that right there it's not an easy practice to tell yourself the truth and to look at your own shadow spaces and cultivate a relationship, and not a shameful relationship. Like this is just where I am, who I am, what I like, what I don't like, and there's no shame in that. It's just the truth. Okay, let's take a deep breath as we affirm the truth that we are. The next one is framing. And so I had an opportunity to really think about how to articulate this better. And I think the best way to say this is, if you can think about an intention and a picture of how you would like this to turn out for you, like I'm fearful of this now. I would like this to turn out this way. This is how I would like to show up. This is how I would like this situation to unfold. You're literally creating a frame. Now, what action, what picture, how do I need to show up in order to now actualize that frame, right? If I want to show up powerfully in my boundaries, right? now I have a frame to put that intention. You know, I have something that I can live into, the way I can take a snapshot of that. So after you, that's a beautiful way to look at framing. And then from there, you can start to think about actions, think about affirmations that you can cultivate to those um, support those intentions and support that frame that you've created. So I hope that's helpful. The last one is alignment, your alignment practices. So after you told the truth, you set intentions. Now you have to make sure that you're in an aligned place, right? And alignment with who you are becoming or who you want to be. So make sure you're doing your daily practices. Make sure that you are feeding your body, your mind, and your spirit in ways that will keep you rooted in the things you want to be, right? So as you're doing all these practices, it's coming from a real, truthful, and authentic place. That means you have to be in constant communication and constant practice. Alignment is not a one-time thing. And if you don't, it's like putting gas in your car. If you're moving around, the gas gonna run out. You have to replenish. You have to keep staying aligned. And it's an intuitive and check-in process. So people are like, well, this is who I am. Okay, this is who I am today. Something may happen, or that season in your life may be over, and you may need to now evolve even your alignment. So for us to be in constant communication and practice with that truth of who we want to be and who what is emerging out of our existence, then we can always remain in the alignment of our truth. So that is the process of transmutation. If you want to, I think I'll make a separate video about this, but I have an embodied process that you can go through that kind of takes you on a journey of how to, kind of work through this sphere using the energy of warrior, your divine feminine. And that doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It's just about that connection to the earth and that connection to mother wisdom. And then using your creative genius. It's kind of like you take a journey. It's people who were in the session. We took a journey. We like jump over the river, face your fear, like use your warrior wisdom. So that's a process that I think I won't include this for the just because it won't be so long, but I will make a video in the future about that in divine timing because it was super fun. One question that came up that I wanted to address as far as this process, the thing to look out for, especially when you're doing your framing and when you're doing your truth telling, when you're doing your alignment, is look out for your trauma bonding and your trauma tolerance, right? So sometimes we'll not give ourselves an opportunity to tell the truth about things, and we always are trying to jump to the picture that looks like what other people want for us, right? That's not our truth. And it'll be an opportunity to really like flog ourselves because we're bonded with trauma, bonded with victimizing ourselves. Or we are very quick, especially I feel this in an embodied way as a Black woman and being viewed as a Black woman upon the earth. The ways in which we tell each other we're strong, we're powerful, we can get through this, nothing can take us out, which is all true, but that's not an excuse to be tolerant of trauma, right? Be tolerant of trauma externally or that which we are holding within ourselves. Power does not mean that you can or that you should, even if you can, just battle through it and not take time and not really feel into the real ways in which things affect us. Even if it means other things crumble, even if it means now I have to realign with a new way of being, that's the courage, right? Just because I am something, doesn't mean I have to show up like that. I'm a warrior energy. what I've learned over the years is there's certain ways to show up in that energy. You can show up in a very militant way. I was a Marine for 8 years. You can show up in a very militant way and a conqueror kind of energy, or you can show up as a wisdom warrior, a peace warrior, a light warrior, right? And you can say, I have the ability to do these things, but the real warrior is the one that tries to avoid and tries to bring into harmony without some of the tyranny ways in which we have operated before. You're not afraid of that if it comes to that, but the ways in which you are rooted and centered, the goal and the intention and the framing is to bring about peace and harmony, right? And if you have to pull out of that bag, so be it. Let the divine plan unfold, right? However, that is not the frame you creating, right? That's not the frame you creating from. It's peace and harmony and love. And so we have to be in touch with that. If I am bonded to that, if I'm bonded to that, instead of saying this is a tool that I now have access to, that keeps me encouraged, right? If you don't, like if you ever gone to somewhere and you feel a certain kind of way because you can't protect yourself if something pop up off, that is a horrible place to be. So sometimes I advise women who I counsel, go and take self-defense classes, go and take these things. You're not calling in the energy, you're making sure that you can make a decision that's not based on fear, because I know I can protect myself. There is nothing to fear. Then that's something you don't even have to think about. You can make informed decisions. You're not going up to somebody and be like, I can beat you up if I want to, because that's not necessarily the case. Even for somebody who has been trained, like, that don't mean you the biggest, baddest human on the planet. That just means I have some tools. And so now my body can be at ease about its safety to some degree. And then I can make beautiful decisions to make sure I'm protecting myself. So, think about that trauma bonding and trauma tolerance as you're going through this, and making sure you're not falling into those pit holes, those holes. The last thing is about being empathetic, and, our ability to have empathy for ourselves and empathy for others is something we definitely have access to and should build access to, but also for people who are empaths, meaning you not only have somebody who holds empathy, which all of us have access to. Somebody who holds empathy can see somebody going through a situation and have access to an experience that they have that is relatable to that, and so they can say, I know what if they can put themselves in somebody else's shoes and really have compassion from that space of empathy. That's great. An empath is someone who doesn't access something that they went through. They actually feel what that person is literally going through in that moment. And if you're not trained in that, you can feel like that is you, because you're actually feeling it. So one practice so that you can transmute fear, and a beautiful thing about staying in alignment with yourself, is that you know where you are. So if another energy, another feeling washes over you when you're in the presence of others, you can clearly know that perhaps I'm an empath. I'm feeling someone else's energy. And in the same way, if you meditate, you can, if a thought comes across, because we're in a thought field, right? If you know how to do it, you know what the general thoughts of people are, because they're floating in the atmosphere, right? That doesn't mean I have to own them. They might not be my thoughts and my feelings. So this is so important right now, because there is so much fear and loss and grief floating through the atmosphere that may not be our own, right? And it's okay to feel into that and to have empathy for that. But for empaths, it can take you out if you don't know how to work with that energy and really be stable and rooted in what you are, the truth that you are, and the joy and the bliss that you are. So I hope that is helpful. Wherever this may be posted, you can have access to me asking me questions. You can find me on Instagram, Meet Sankofa at New Sankofa, or Facebook at the Light Warriors Sisterhood. I'm sure I'll probably post it there in some way. So I hope this has been helpful. Light, love, blessings, and especially blessings to people who sat with me during this session.